Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello everyone, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Good of you to be here today. If you're new, welcome. To the rest of you, welcome back. I hope this video finds you all in good health, secure. And I know the lighting keeps changing in this room daily. It's winter, the sun is lower, overcast, sunny, whatever. I keep having to change my key light here. Oh well. Thank you for your patience. I wanted to ask a favor of all of you, new or been here for a long time, whoever, whatever. Trends are trends. They change, right? And I have gradually over the years moved toward a longer format video where I've kind of settled into somewhere between 50 to 60 minutes. And then I figure that's probably enough information to chew on without getting too redundant. And that's where I call it on the length of videos. I used to make much shorter videos. And you guys probably all know that there's specific algorithms and things on YouTube, and you have to be at least 10 minutes long to register, and certain algorithms and blah, blah, blah. As I've said many times, I'm doing this for our practice, to get the most, not just information certainly, but the most boost to our practice, encouragement for our practice, depth of resolve for our practice. Yeah? And in that goal, if the longer format, or if the format as I'm doing it now, about 50 to 60 minutes, is just too long, I think just looking at the stats, it looks like people generally will listen or watch for 20 to 30 minutes and then either come back to it later. But then generally people don't sit or listen or watch for a full hour. And so I'm, maybe things are fine the way they are and you just piecemeal and you go through, and that's fine. If that works for you, then that's what I'll continue to do. But please, in the comments, let me know. About 20 minutes is my limit. Something like that. Let me know. I like it the way it is. Don't change a thing. I wouldn't mind if you did 4-hour videos. I want to hear all of your opinions. And based on that, if for myself, I need to do this for about an hour to get a thought completely out. You probably have recognized I'm a bit verbose. But I want to I want to dissect this because the whole purpose of this study is so that we come at everything from every angle possible. That's the way I see it. So that your insights will come from one direction and may not work in another direction. So I want to cover as much ground as I can as far as dissecting the meaning in these teachings. So for me, this is what I need to do. And I can do that and separate it into smaller chunks. Maybe I do 2 videos a day, 3 videos, whatever it takes for me to satiate my need of exploration and explication of these teachings. That's on me. But I'm doing this not just for myself. I'm doing this for your practice. So let me know. Is it better, easier, more useful for you to have small chunks, or do you get into it? Do you wish that I sometimes would explore further? So let me know about that time element. I'm experimenting right now with chunks of previous videos that I put up, kind of like putting up teasers on Instagram. They're not complete by any means, but they're little reminders or introductions to people who don't know anything about this channel. To grow this Sangha. We need to grow this Sangha, yes? I hope that's not too much to put on you, but I think of us as working together here. So please chime in. All right, enough public service announcements. We are trucking through the Lankavatara here. I must be talking a bunch, though, because we're already on part 33, and we're not quite halfway through the book. But who cares? I don't care. I mean, if this is the last thing I read before I croak, that's fine. Everything's about our practice. And again, I'm just repeating myself now. So we're going to get into, and we've been moving into this space with Mahamati and Shakyamuni. This difference between dhyana or dhyana, insight, thought processes, meditations on the teachings of realization, Buddhahood. And a key obstacle that we've been running into is this transition from earlier teachings to Mahayana teachings. A lot of the earlier sects, practitioners, and today this happens a lot. People get stuck in their minds, in their intelligence, in our samsaric mind. Yeah? And there's a difference between, and the words are difficult here too, because we talk about Buddha wisdom, right? And we think of wisdom as knowledge, right? But it's kind of like, this is an old argument. I don't hear it said much anymore. I used to say it all the time, because in the industries that I've worked in and been involved in, even as an artist, there's this fulcrum, this argumentation point of, you know, are you born an artist, or can you learn to be an artist? If you have a PhD or even just an associate's degree in anything, any subject, does advanced scholarship from the standpoint of academics, because scholarship is a larger word, certainly is for me, the thought that scholarship is an investigation endeavor, as we're doing right now, to resolve and gain insights and to incorporate those insights into our living, is a different thing than simply to collect knowledge like an academic and then get a stamp of approval and a plaque on the wall or whatever that says, I have learned all this stuff. My point, from my perspective, has always been, okay, you know all those books, you know all those references, you've learned a lot, but realize that somebody had to figure that out for themselves in order for those books to be produced. Do you know what's in those books at a level which has created your own insights for you to surpass the book and add something of value to that sphere of learning? Or do you just know the past, the detritus, really, of that learning? You see, the same thing is happening in Buddhism with Mahamati and Shakyamuni here. Shakyamuni is having to constantly remind him, right? They talk about the philosophers. The philosophers is a word that they're using, or that Suzuki is using in this translation, to indicate those book learners, those academicians, talking as though they know something, when in fact what they know is how to talk about something. But that's different than experiencing something. There's a very clear delineation here. Shosravaka's world of learning, Pratyagabuddha's world of realization. Are they? Or are they just really good academicians? I understand this and I'm incorporating in my life, but are you transcending that knowing? Are you realizing your Buddhaness, your mind of witnessing without attachment, without ego? See, this is where the ego comes into play, because the ego says, I am the observer, which is different than saying the observing is occurring. The I part, the self-realization, is a pushing away of the self part of that equation, and a participant in mind of the realization, without locale, without identification, which really eschews the word self. That's kind of, we need a different word. It shouldn't, Suzuki keeps saying self-realization, and I've said it. As Lotus Sutra practitioners, we practice the way to self-awaken, but there's a division there that we too often hyphenate self and realization, as though the realization is something that occurs in the self. But that's not the realization we're talking about. We're talking about a realization of the construct of self that is totally provisional for the emergence of this mind, which is not self, but the all-seeing eye, right? The truth of the nature of all phenomena, including selfness. But we're trying to be in Buddha-ness, not selfness. There's a real dividing demarcation point between the two, although they coexist. And what do we call that coexistence? Bodhisattva. So it can be confusing, because all of the teaching of Shakyamuni and Buddhism is about this odd negotiative point, if you will, that Buddhaness cannot be experienced outside of samsara, and yet Buddhaness is not samsara, but the whole perspective of Buddhaness is something that obviates what samsara and all phenomena is. Without samsara, there is no life. Life is, you could say, samsara. The shift, the paradigm, the realization, the awakening is of a detached mind of observation, a witnessing of this grand, magnificent, precious thing that is this roiling, unimaginably immense and complicated expression of potential. when we localize it as a self, it becomes very tiny, very self-referential. That's the problem with identification, is it cuts us off from the realm of all life. And this is part and parcel of why, as we've constricted our experience, we then have all these stresses and anxieties because we're trying to hang on to something that's moving. It's a constantly moving, reinstantiating, fluxing. It's not even a target because it's already gone. You can't aim at something that's already left. But that's the delusion of samsara, that we can somehow possess the process, right? So to put words to this, it's slippery. But so far, the Lankavatara has been an exercise in trying to nail this down. Is it succeeding? So let's see. We're going to dive into it a little deeper now. See, I've already expended 16 minutes just setting this up. So this is why I don't know if shorter form videos are useful. But maybe they are. You tell me. All right. Further, Mahamati, in order to go beyond the dhyanas, the insights, the thoughts, the meditations, the immeasurables, and the formless world, the signs of this visible world, which is mind itself, your mental experience, right? Cognition, perception, should be discarded. Because if you see yourself and you understand yourself to be constructing this reality that you're in, that is an act of possession. That is an act of selfish identification, self and other duality. So here we're confronting the difficulty, right? We've been using this mind itself thing as though that was the answer. But now Shakyamuni is saying you need to discard that too. Because that's where your ego is coming from. The ego is saying that you are developing your mind to the point that you can discriminate all of the things that you've constructed. Well, then you're just finding a different complicated verbiage to do exactly what you've been doing all along. You haven't released, you haven't experienced the witnessing. You think you have because you've organized it all in your brilliant ego. You have to discard that too. The samapati leading to the extinction of thought, which I really abhor that verbiage, because we're not trying to extinguish thought. If we extinguish thought, then how could we know Buddhaness, Buddhahood? Come on, Suzuki. This is terrible translation. It's not the extinguishing of thought that we're after. It's the extinguishing of our adherence, our loving, embracing idea that every thought we have is something we possess and we own. That's a big, big difference. And sensation does not enable one to transcend the world of particulars. Well, that's what he's saying right here. Samapati leading to the extinction of thought and sensation does not enable one to transcend the world of particulars, for there is nothing but mind. So this is what he's Shakyamuni trying to say, and Suzuki is trying to interpret in English, or someone for Suzuki, I don't know. So it is said The dhyanas and the immeasurables, the formless, the samadhis, and the complete extinction of thought, these do not exist where the mind alone is. So now he's using the word mind again, but what's different about his use of the mind here? Observer mind, not knowledge mind. The difference between knowing something and experiencing something. The experience mind is what provides for us to witness. We slip from that witness to ownership in an instant. And that is the dividing line. Right? And we're still working now with the alaya consciousness where all of this is in formation. The extra step this needs to go is to that ninth consciousness, which is a consciousness of mind alone, as he would say, without the conjuring, the formations. Now with the words, it's easier to distinguish where the border lies. The unmanifested mind, which is a position of understanding, perspective, because we know the mind only emerges from this physicality of instantiations, the universe, the body, self, universe, it's all body, right? The fruit of the stream entered, and that of the once returning, and that of the never returning, and the arhatship. These are the bewildered states of mind. So finally, he's articulating it. He's saying that all of these early students of Buddhism who've inculcated all of this knowledge, who've done all this learning, who've changed their lives in accord with what they've learned, who've established themselves as authorities of the way they live their life, they're in bewildered states of mind because they continue to observe their lives from the standpoint of ego. I am enlightened. I am of this world. I am releasing all of my attachments. That's what I am doing. You see the problematic here? They're still very much attached to the world. They just claim a superior mental attitude, but they haven't released their ego. They're still very much in samsara. The dhyana practicer, the dhyana, the subject for it, the destruction, the seeing of the truth, these are no more than discriminations. When this is recognized, there is emancipation. This is the toughest part of Buddhist practice, of awakening. That final step of realizing that as much as you understand about the construction of the world and how opinions are attachments, emotions, everything we feel around the world, at some point you have to come to who's doing this? Who's doing this attaching? Who's doing this embracing? Who is owning? That who? That too is a construction. That who is the self, the ego, the I, the mind, the very moment of that realization can seem to set you adrift. It can be very intimidating. Of course, you and I, practicing the Lotus Sutra, we have the perfect buoy, solidity with which to feel critically anchored in Buddhaness, without fear, without thoughts of loss, right? Because that's what happens at that moment when you discover the who, is that if you're not the who, fear rises, because that means I'll lose everything. What does that leave me? Yeah? But if you invoke Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, then the who becomes the everything. There is no loss. There's only gain. There's only experience. There's only, this is incredible. All of you need to see this incredibleness together. It's here now. That's something we've never thought from. This is what we do when we chant. We instantiate that Buddhaness, that release from the who, and we are in the process. We are life itself, undistinguishable, unselfable. Yeah? Further, Mahamati, there are two kinds of intellect. The intellect as examining function, and the intellect which functions in connection with the attachment to ideas of discrimination. As for the intellect that examines, Mahamati, it is that act of intellect which examines into the self-nature of things, finding it to be devoid of the four propositions and unattainable, right? Emptiness, right? What we grasp for is already gone. That grasping and ownership is a grand illusion that we create, which is why we stress and have anxiety about it. It's just this simple formula over and over again. This is known as the intellect that examines, because if you examine something, then there has to be something to examine, yes? So you're already in ego. You're already in the self. You're identifying this, not that, that, not this, me, not those, mine, I, you, theirs. What is meant by being devoid of the four propositions? What it means to be devoid of oneness and otherness, bothness and not bothness, being and not being, eternity and not eternity. Those questions come from trying to permanentize time. We're in momentum, people. Otherwise, we'd be rocks. And even rocks are in momentum, but you understand. These are called the four propositions. Mahamati, train yourself to examine carefully all things as regards these four propositions. What, Mahamati, is the intellect which functions in connection with the attachment to ideas of discrimination? This is the intellect with which the mind is discriminated, and the ideas arising therefrom are adhered to as real. And this adherence gives rise to the conceptions of warmth, fluidity, motility, solidity, characterizing the gross elements, while the tenacious holding to proposition, reason, definition, and illustration leads to the assertion of a non-entity as an entity. So this is the mind of discernment. This is the one that we're most familiar with, right? This mind is the samsaric mind that that instantiates, constructs the ego, the self, as the qualifier, grasper, owner, loser, right? This central entity, when in fact it's already gone. Moment to moment to moment, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Yeah? This Mahamadi is what characterizes the two kinds of intellect, in accordance with which the Bodhisattvas, thoroughly mastering the signs of egolessness of persons and things, and by means of knowledge of imagelessness, becoming conversant with the stage of examination and practice, will attain the first stage of bodhisattvahood and acquire 100 dhyanas. In other words, once you delve into that reality and begin to really dig deep into the construction of self, and you understand the workings, at least intellectually, you will be at the first stage and you will gain tremendous insights. Hundreds, right? 100, he says. Attaining the excellent samadhis, they will see 100 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They will enter into 100 kalpas that were prior to the present, and also into those that will follow the present. They will illuminate 100 Buddha lands, and illuminating 100 Buddha lands, they will understand the signs belonging to the higher stages, and by virtue of the most exalted vows, they will manifest wonderful powers. They will be initiated in the Buddhas, or by the Buddhas, when they reach the stage of Dharma Mega, or the law cloud, and realizing the inmost realms of the Tathagatas, they will be provided with things which are closely connected with the 10 inexhaustible vows, and in order to bring all beings into maturity, they will shine out in various forms with the rays of transformation. They will be quite absorbed in the bliss of self-realization. So what has he just described there? He's basically saying, Mahamadi, once you translate what you think you know into actual realization, realizing that you yourself are the product of all these processes, you will be flooded with so many insights that you will actually radiate. Your life, your energy will radiate this knowledge, this knowing, this state of being everywhere you go. Your environment will change, but your environment will change only in that you perceive it anew. The environment didn't change. It is your perception of the environment that has changed. And that perception is everything. And that perception will infect and influence everything around you. From your neighbor to the cat, the dog, the house, everything. And the more you see that happening, the deeper you will commit your resolve to seeing more, to experiencing less and less ego, more and more this exciting, constantly moving momentum that is life, and inculcate everything around you in it. Which, by the way, you're doing anyway. You're just doing it with lesser life force, lesser life-affirming actions. Right? We're all doing this anyway. It's just that the tendency, samsarically, is to do it politically. But when you gain this understanding of energies, formations, and everything constructed, your manipulation, which is all based on ownership and losing, right? I want yours, you want mine, you can't have it. That's politic. And it's all based on possession, which is based on ego. So in a very real way, if you watch any videos or programs or broadcasts on politicians and you listen to them going, posturing and da-da-da, it might bring a tear to your eye. Because A, you know they're all lying. They're all saying what they're saying in order to manipulate others to gain something. And the game becomes so obvious, it's incredibly sad. Oh my goodness, where is the real value? Where is the respect for humanity? Where is the celebration of life in that low-level competition? For what? Right? That's a real-world application of Buddhism, right? That's a lot to consider. And now we're 35 minutes in. Is this long enough? Is this a good enough wrap? Should I end my videos at about the half-hour mark? I certainly can go on. Shakyamuni certainly did. So I'm going to go a little further. But I don't want you to miss any of this because you're tired of listening. This is why I need your feedback, yeah? Further, Mahamadi, the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas are to be well acquainted with the primary and the secondary elements. What does he mean by that? How do the Bodhisattvas know the primary and the secondary elements? Mahamadi, the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas are to know this, that the truth is that the primary elements have never come into existence, and that, Mahamadi, those elements are unborn. So you don't need to look for a point in the process of propagation and not of Buddhism, but of elements, of things, of ideas, or the possession of them to find where the problem lies. It's the whole thing. Thus understood, there is nothing in the world but what is discriminated by our imagination. That's why every single one of us has a different idea of the same things. And then we compete on whose idea is right. Chaos. When it is recognized that the visible world is no more than imagined, external objects cease to have realities. We're arguing about vapor, emptiness, nothingness. And there is nothing but what is discriminated by the mind and perceived as external. We're all energy manifesting. That is to say, let it be understood that the triple world has nothing to do with the primary and secondary elements, that it is removed from the four propositions and philosophical systems, that has nothing to do with a personal ego and what belongs to it, and that it establishes itself in the abode of real reality, where it is seen in its own form, i.e., in its unborn state. Ungraspable. Just an instantiation of conditions, like a wave on the ocean. Right? You hear surfers talking about catching a wave, but they're not literally owning the wave. They're just riding a manifestation of potential and riding it out. I don't know why the surfer came up for me, but Mahamati, what is meant by the elements derived from the primary elements? The element discriminated as vacidity produces the realm of water. Interesting that he uses water here. Inner and outer. The element discriminated as energy produces the realm of fire, inner and outer. The element discriminated as motility produces the realm of air, inner and outer. The element discriminated by divisibility of form gives birth to the realm of earth together with space, inner and outer. Because of the attachment to the incorrect truths that there is the aggregation of the five skandhas giving rise to the elements primary and secondary. As though because you're conscious of them, they come into reality. That's a fundamentally wrong assumption. But that's how we experience life, right? Prior to Buddhism, even while we're learning Buddhism. Again, Mahamati, the Vijnana has its cause in our attachment to and the desire for the multitudinous of statements and objective fields, and it continues to evolve in another path of existence. Mahamati, the secondary elements such as earth, etc., are said to have their cause in the primary elements, which, however, are non-existent. Because Mahamati of things endowed with being, characteristics, perceivableness, abode, and work, one can say that they are born of the combination of the various effect-producing elements, but not of things which are devoid of characteristic marks. For this reason, Mahamati, the elements primary and secondary are the discriminations of the philosophers and not mine. We've defined the difference between Buddha and philosophers, yeah? Because philosophers work with the mind as an extant thing, and everything derives, all truth, all reality derives from the discrimination of things. And that's not Buddhism. Buddhism says observe that mechanism and eschew it, get it out of here, because that's what's causing all of your anxiety, your pain, your suffering, right? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thanks for listening. I hope you take my plea for your comments seriously. I'm not doing it for the algorithms. I really want to know how I can be most helpful. So if this is about the right time for this conversation, this amount of time, just give me a thumbs up. Go, yep, this is great. Thanks for this. I'll listen to it in my own terms, whatever. Don't worry about it. Or I really do wish you would complete a thought within 30 minutes because I can't put the time in and I don't want to miss anything. Could you make your videos stay under 30 minutes? Or could you just keep elaborating? Just take what it takes. If it takes 2 hours to talk about something, then take 2 hours. I'll adjust my time or whatever. I don't know. Let me know how you feel about it, right? Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Please like, subscribe. It helps grow this channel for all of us. Just got another donation on PayPal. Larry, thank you. Any kind of support you guys can afford financially, if you're able, like think of it as a cup of coffee. Helps the channel tremendously. And in the meantime, just the main thing is keep practicing, right? Believe in yourself. Believe in your Buddhaness. And so thank you for that. And with all of that said, I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Take care of yourself. Be kind. Bye for now.